Hi, Alicia. Let's see what you've done here in this new set of essays. Before I start, I want to ask you to do me a favor. Please include the image of the task in your answer. I often refer to them when I'm doing these corrections, and so it's really very helpful if it's actually just in the file rather than me looking for it or doing something like that, okay? So the bar chart depicts, it's not below, the bar chart depicts uh, the number of two types of footwear sold in 9 European countries in 2018. Careful with your use of articles here. All right, there are a couple of mistakes here. The data is presented in thousands, and there are two bars for each country, each representing the number of black or brown shoes sold. Now, this you don't need. I would have gotten rid of this entirely. Yes, you want to present the chart in such a way that someone not looking at it can visualize it, but not with this kind of information, okay? You don't really need to do this. So you could have said the bar chart depicts the number of two types of footwear, comma, namely brown and black leather, comma, sold in 9 European countries in 2018. And then you don't need to go into all of this. I thought this was superfluous. You didn't really need it. And you're already at 237 words, so it's not like you needed this sentence to meet the 150 suggested word minimum and so forth, okay? So just get rid of that. Hungarians bought the highest number of shoes with 270,000 pairs. That was respectively 130,000, get rid of that S, brown leather shoes, and 140,000, no S, black leather shoes. Also get rid of those ofs. That was also the highest number of footwear sold amongst all the presented countries. Fine, you don't need to add these together. And the reason I'm suggesting that is because if they wanted this total, then they would have presented this as a stacked bar chart. They did not. So you don't need to give us this total number, okay? So let's keep going. In Belgium, comma here, brown shoes were the least popular with only 5,000 pairs purchased. Meanwhile, black leather shoes made Meanwhile, black leather shoes had the third biggest sales with 105,000. I'm assuming you're still talking about Belgium here. Poland and Germany also showed a huge gap between the number of black and brown shoes sold. Differently to Belgian, AN here, citizens, both countries preferred brown shoes over black with sales with a difference of 60,000 for Poland and 50,000 for Germany. Countries that had similar sales of both types of footwear were Hungary, Italy, and the UK. The country with the lowest sales of both types of shoes together was France, where sales of black leather shoes were significantly smaller than in the rest of Europe that year. Okay. Overall, significant differences can be noted between brown and black leather shoe sales numbers in Europe in 2018. Some countries show preference for specific color footwear, whilst in others preferences do not vary so much. All right. So I really do need to bring this up. I need to get the image, so let me do that. All right, so I found it for you, and I just wanted to cover a few things. So like I said, you didn't really have to talk about the totals here. You did mention all 9 countries, and that's good because you do want to do that to make sure that you have included all the categories. That's important. Even if you just mention them once, it's important to do this. But what I want to do right now is talk to you a little bit about how to categorize, because that's where one of the places where I felt you kind of ran into some problems here. I didn't feel like the organization was as clear as maybe it could have been. Let me just go back to your response here. Right. So you had this paragraph about Hungary. And then you went to look what you did, okay? So you talked about Hungary, you put it in its own paragraph. And then you talked about Belgium. And then you talked about a handful of countries that had big differences. Okay. So up to here, you're talking about countries that had really big differences. And then all of a sudden, you go to countries that had small differences, but you didn't really give us any data here. Okay. So this might not have been the best way to organize your paragraphs. Okay. One of the things that we recommend is having your introduction, of course, and then I always suggest doing your overview right away. All right. I have a lot of reasons for this, but do your overview straight after your introduction, and then have two body paragraphs where you go over the details. So you've got black leather, you've got brown leather, and that's precisely how I would divide my paragraphs. I would have a paragraph about black and then a paragraph about brown, and I would make some comparisons when relevant. So let me show you what that would look like. For me, I always utilize these numbers here along the side. Okay, so I would start off just like you did, talking about Hungary. Okay, but I would say that of the 9 countries, 3 had between 100 and 150,000 shoes, black shoes sold. More specifically, Hungary had the most with 140,000, followed by Italy, and Belgium had just over 100,000. In contrast, the fewest black leather shoes sold were in France at roughly 35,000. The remaining countries, and then here I could mention them by name, all sold between 50 and 100,000 black leather shoes. Okay? So then I would do a very similar thing with my brown leather shoes. I would say, regarding brown leather shoes, 4 countries sold over 100,000 shoes, but at lower figures than those of black leather shoes. Okay. And then, specifically, Poland had the highest sales of brown leather shoes at whatever number that is. Looks like it's about 135, followed closely by Hungary again, with whatever number that is, 125 perhaps. Oh, no, wait, Hungary and Germany with 125. And then Italy was just over 100,000. All right. And then again, I would talk about Belgium, but I would also highlight that it's the lowest figure on the chart. That's important. You do want to highlight those things. So the highest figure on the chart, the lowest figure on the chart, you do want to highlight those and emphasize that. And then, again, I might do something similar as I did before. I would say that 1, 2, 3, 4 countries had between 50 and 100,000. Okay. And then, of course, you would want to check your word count to make sure that you're okay. If it's not close to 150 words, you may want to mention something else about these middle numbers here. Okay. Or, you may not. It really just depends. But that's how I would organize this. Is it the only way to do this? No, of course not. There are countless ways to organize it. But I do find that this is a really nice, clear way to present this information. Okay, so let's look at your task 2 now. Traditional food, fast food. Let's see. Nutrition and social science experts have debated the impact of the popularity of fast food and the process of replacing traditional foods by processed dishes. Okay, I don't know if it's the process or maybe just the replacement of traditional foods. Maybe this would have been better. So why don't we try to get rid of some of these extra words here that aren't really helping your message, and instead they're just kind of making it a little wordy. So we're aiming for clarity here. Nutrition and social science experts have debated the impact of fast food and the replacement of traditional foods by processed dishes. Do that. Or the impact of fast food. Yeah, you could do that. Okay. Some believe it is just a mark of our times. I would have said a sign, not a mark. It is just a sign of our times and a necessary convenience, and that the impact on individuals, families, and society is not necessarily negative. I probably would have gotten rid of this and. So look, some believe that it is just a sign of our times, comma, a necessary inconvenience, and that the impact on individuals, families, and society is not necessarily negative. That's okay. I like it, but I don't like it when you take language that is exactly like what's here. Where is it? Families, individuals, and society. Okay, great. You just changed the word order around. Individuals, families, society. You could have done a little more than that just to kind of vary it up a little bit, okay? All right. Personally, I strongly disagree, and this essay will argue that the detrimental effect of fast food expansion can be seen on many levels. Okay, so again, I really want you to be careful with these articles, these thes that I saw in your task one and here were not consistently correct. Okay, firstly, eating home cooked meals is an important part of family life. Spending time together whilst shopping, preparing food, and consuming it can be truly beneficial for all members of the family. Okay, I don't know why. I'm curious. Why is this telling me that there's a problem with this sentence? I'm not really sure why. Spending time together while shopping. It can be. I don't know why it's underlined. It's fine. There is ample evidence suggesting that children involved in food preparation are more likely to have well-balanced, healthy diets in the future and avoid eating disorders. Okay. Moreover, cooking often becomes a great opportunity for older members of a family to teach youngsters about their heritage and tradition. Good. Preserving traditions enriches our social environment, stops people from losing their unique identity, and our society from becoming homogeneous. Homogeneous. Okay. Fine. Thus, it is possible to state beyond doubt that going out to eat too often would stop individuals and families benefiting from the advantages offered by home cooking. All right, we're going to talk more about this. All right, so very clearly about families. Oh, wow, you have a lot of paragraphs. What happened here? You have 3. I see. So you decided to put all of them into, okay, fine, each paragraph. Additionally, comma, high availability of fast food restaurants close, not closely, close to schools, workplaces, and residential areas creates so-called obesogenic, creates a so-called, you put a dash here. What's going on here? Creates a so-called obesogenic environment. It can be understood as a certain set of conditions that promote unhealthy behaviors like eating calorie-dense products and avoiding physical activity. The data from Polish Statistical Agency showed that the number of fast food restaurants tripled in Rockland in the last 20 years. Meanwhile, childhood obesity rates also increased. Therefore, comma, a correlation between availability of fat-rich dishes and a rise in prevalence of obesity can be suggested. Okay, what is this paragraph about? This is about individuals. It's not totally clear. All right, I'm going to keep going before we start talking about task achievement. Secondly, why is this a secondly? That doesn't make sense. You have firstly, and then you have a paragraph that starts with additionally, and then down here you have secondly. No, so that needs to be fixed, okay? Although benefits of home cooking are overpowering, fast food has a few advantages. In the last decades, comma, the pace of life has sped up and people look for easy options to feed a family. Fast food is quite cheap, tasty, and widely approachable. Is a quite cheap, tasty, and widely approachable option. The fact that it is also nearly identical all over the world makes it a meal of choice for travelers who need safe options whilst abroad. For example, McDonald's Corporation, with their restaurants spread all over the world, feeds 1% of the world's population every day, and their cheeseburger was claimed the best food in terms of calories to price ratio. Therefore, fast food, all right, here you want a comma, as an affordable and convenient meal has a positive impact on individuals and families that are experiencing heavy workloads and cannot concentrate on home cooking at the moment. Okay. From the arguments and examples given, I firmly believe that increasing popularity of fast food meals that replace home cooking has the popularity, that's your subject, has a negative impact on individuals, societies, and families. Okay. So what I wanted to talk about here, Alicia, is your task achievement, which I kind of feel runs into some issues. So let me show you what I mean. All right. So what is this about? What is this telling us? First of all, it's setting up the situation for us here with this sentence, okay? It's telling us that traditional foods are being replaced by fast food. So this is the essay's given, all right? You're not allowed to discuss whether this is happening or not. This is a trend that the people at IELTS and their infinite wisdom have decided is just a given and it's fact, okay? So traditional food is being replaced by fast food. Then this is what is up for debate. This shift away from traditional food, this rising trend of fast food is detrimental to these three layers of our world. Okay, so this is what is up for debate. The shift towards fast food has a negative impact on families, individuals, and society. That's what they're saying here. And then you have to answer to what extent you agree or disagree. Okay, does that make sense? So your position has to be around this shift, this kind of rising trend of fast food as opposed to traditional food. Does it have a negative impact on these three layers? Okay, so let's see. You talked about the shift here and you said you disagree, you think it's detrimental. Okay, so fine. Then, what did you talk about here? You decided to talk about how fantastic home cooked meals are, but that's not what you're really supposed to be talking about. The focus here should be on fast food, okay? And um how this rise of fast food maybe precludes this from happening. Okay. So it's really about just making sure that you have the right perspective. So you could say that one negative element of fast food replacing traditional food is that much of food culture is lost. Okay. Additionally, much of family bonding is lost when everyone quickly grabs a bite to eat and then goes on with their day. Okay. And then, of course, you want to do all the wonderful things that you're learning to do, like supporting your arguments. But again, it's about the perspective. It's this shift away from traditional food to fast food that is being discussed. How negative is this for our families? Okay. So I don't want you to focus exclusively on traditional food, but instead how this movement away from traditional food to fast food is negative to the family. Is that making any sense? I don't know if I am. I hope so. But let me know if that's absolutely clear. Okay. So here you're telling me about how wonderful traditional food is. Yeah, we know that. There's not really a debate about this. What you want to talk about is how fast food is making this tradition lost. Okay. We are losing this tradition. So because so many families are turning to fast food as a quick and affordable option, many families are losing a wonderful opportunity where older members teach youngsters about their heritage. Okay, so do you understand the perspective here? Understanding this is really the difference between like a decent score and like a very good score. Okay, so it's important to get the focus right rather than talking about, in other words, it's not correct to say, hey, this is why traditional food is good and this is why fast food is bad. No, it's more about, look, fast food is replacing all of this. Let's talk about why that's bad. Okay, so let's continue. And then here, I didn't really understand what your focus was. Are you talking about society and how it's negative for society? I would have liked you to signpost this a little more clearly and make it a little more obvious for us that that's what you're talking about. Also, as I already implied, I disagreed with a couple of things here. Number one, I disagreed with, firstly, and then additionally, this should have been a secondly, really. And then this would have been a thirdly, okay? Uh, let's see. So yes, I would have liked this to be clearer that you're talking about how this affects society. Okay. And then here, I was very confused because you talked about, I strongly disagree. Okay. And this essay will talk about the detrimental effect. So, okay, great. Detrimental effect. And then detrimental effect. And then all of a sudden, here you're talking about how great fast food is. So this was very confusing. And this is not going to help your essay because it doesn't create a cohesive essay. All right, let me tell you what I mean. Because look what you did. It says, to what extent do you agree? I strongly disagree. I think that fast food is detrimental. And all of a sudden, we have an entire paragraph telling us how wonderful fast food can be. So an examiner is going to look at this and say two things. Number one, that there is not a clear progression of your ideas. And number two, that no conclusions can be drawn. Because on the one hand, you told us fast food is terrible. And we read 2 paragraphs about it. And we heard in your introduction that it's terrible. And then all of a sudden you have your last paragraph, which is usually where we save our strongest arguments. And you're telling us that fast food is great. Okay, so let's talk about how you could have done this instead. First of all, I disagree with 3 body paragraphs. Number one, straight off the bat, I would like you to do this in 2 body paragraphs. And you're probably thinking, yeah, but Ellen, how? It's 3 things I have to talk about. You can still do it. You can talk about families in 1 paragraph and then what that means more broadly to society. And then you can talk about individuals and what that more broadly means to society. So for example, I talked about losing food culture. Okay. So families lose meals that or recipes that have been, passed down from generation to generation. And then what does that mean for our society as a whole? Well, it means that we're losing a lot of our food culture. It means we're losing a lot of traditions over time. And so this is very bad for society, not just families. For individuals, you can talk about the negative health effects that this shift towards fast food has with its preservatives, with its, genetically modified, who even knows what, with its flavor enhancers and all these chemicals. Okay, you can say how bad it is for the individual and the individual's health, but then what does this mean for society? If you have individuals who are eating all this stuff, who are getting obese, who are getting sick, this is a real problem for society. You have a society of obese people who cannot work, who are sick all the time, and this is a great strain on the health system of a country. Okay? So that's how I would do it. Now, you decided to have this paragraph here where you talked about the benefits of fast food. And I want to let you know that you can, in fact, do this. You can have a concession paragraph. That's what this is called. But this is not how you do it. You don't put it right before your conclusion, number one. Number two, when you are going to have a concession paragraph, when you decide that you want one, you absolutely need to indicate it in your position. So it should be something like, personally, while this trend towards fast food can have some benefits, on the whole, I agree that it has multiple detrimental effects on many levels. Okay, so that's how you do it. You have a sentence that shows while. So while there are some benefits, on the whole, the detrimental effects of this can be seen on many levels. Okay, that's how you do it. And then that paragraph comes first. But here, because you had so many different things to talk about, you had families and individuals and society, I don't even think you really need to. I mean, you could, but you don't need to. Okay, so a ton of information in this correction. I hope that's helpful. I hope it gives you some food for thought and how you can improve your essays moving forward. So yeah, that's that. Okay, keep going, and I'm looking forward to your next set. Good luck.